All right. All right, let's go. Let's get this party started. Hello, everyone. I think I'm live. I think I'm rocking and rolling. How goes it today, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It is so good to see everybody. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. My workout went a little bit longer than anticipated. I apologize about that. But we are here, we are rocking, and we're rolling, baby. We've got great topics to talk about today, and I feel like I've been saying that the last few weeks, which is great news, right? That means the video game industry has been loaded in news, and it really has. It's been awesome because if you guys remember, during the summer, it was a bit rough, trying to find topics to talk about every week. But we're rocking, man. We got so much to talk about today. I got a hard out. I'm going for an hour and a half today, and then I gotta bounce. I gotta go to work. So there is a hard out today, but dude, we've got so much to talk about. So what are the big topics we can get to this week? Well, first of all, Cyberpunk 2077 is doing absolutely absurd things with a massive resurgence. Obviously, the thing that led into this was the anime drop of Cyberpunk Edge Runners. That was like extremely well received by both fans and critics. We're seeing a very similar situation as to what happened with The Witcher Netflix series and The Witcher 3. CD Projekt Red has become like the company to look to for series and game synergy. Everyone's going to be trying to copy these guys and what they're doing right now. I don't mean copy as in like the exact same thing, but they've done it twice now. Once, and it's kind of like, oh, that could be just a fluke. It's happened twice. Twice they've dropped Netflix series and have had massive sales boosts to follow it up. So trust me, a lot of people in the industry are going to be wanting to repeat this. How impressive is this resurgence we're seeing from Cyberpunk 2077? It's doing over 1 million players a day right now. That's right, a single player game. This is not multiplayer in any way. A single player game almost 2 years after launch is doing 1 million daily players. Absolutely crazy stuff. We can dive into that if you guys want to. What's going on with Cyberpunk? How long can they keep this up? Patches for the game clearly have helped things, and all sorts of stuff with Cyberpunk we can talk about. We've got tons of news topics. EA announced that they're making a new Iron Man game from Motive, who's doing the Dead Space remake right now. We can talk about that and Marvel if you want. There's a new report about a new PS5 model coming to the market that doesn't have a disk drive built into the console. We can talk about why Sony might be doing that, what benefit there is. August NPD results are out, which I'm going to break down for you in just a minute. Of course, there's the huge elephant in the room, and that's the Grand Theft Auto 6 leaks. How could that impact Rockstar? What's going on there? Tons and tons and tons. We literally have an infinite amount of topics practically to talk about today. All right, so if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. You just drop them down into chat, and we break down the latest and greatest news in the video game industry. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want. I get to as many free questions as I possibly can per chat. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that's going to be the super chat option. Just type a donation, whatever you want, and I get to super chats immediately. But don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel. Okay, let me really quick go over the NPD results, and then we're getting to your questions. Okay. So for hardware, number one hardware for the month was PlayStation 5. That's right, PlayStation 5 is coming on strong right now. It was number one in both units and revenue. So a great month for PlayStation 5. I am seeing very similar things happening in September in terms of like big boosts. We're going to have to see if PlayStation 5 can take number one with Splatoon launching. Splatoon 3 is an utter juggernaut in Japan particularly, but it's been really big in the US as well, I can tell you that. So I wouldn't say it's a lock that PlayStation 5 can outsell Switch next in September. We'll have to see, like I said, how that Splatoon effect is. But what I can say is no matter what, it's going to be a very good month for PlayStation 5. Very, very good. Way up over last year. So PlayStation 5 really rebounding. In the United States, it had been on a bit of a rough run, right? Xbox was outselling it the vast majority of the year up until very recently. So to start to get some of that ground back for the year, they were behind Xbox Series, like I said, almost every month, but now they're coming back a bit. So clearly inventory levels are really improving for PS5. In terms of your software, here's your top 20. Madden NFL 23 debuts at number 1. That should be no shock at all. Madden always debuts number 1 whenever it comes out every single year. Like literally just check mark it. Madden's going to be number 1 the month it releases. Number 2 is Saints Row. This is actually a pretty decent launch. However, we did get some comments from Embracer about that they were very disappointed with the reception to the game. Some people are reporting that they said they were very disappointed in sales. I read the comments, and unless I missed it, didn't particularly say that it was sales specifically that they were disappointed. It was more reception, and that could affect the game's performance overall. So I would say this looks to me like it had a pretty good launch. However, I think we all suspect legs are probably going to be very, very rough because, they were noting the reception was very disappointing in terms of how people felt about the game. So we'll have to see, but I'm expecting a very big drop next month. Number 3, Marvel's Spider-Man, an incredible boost coming up from number 84 last month to number 3 this month, and we all know that was driven by the Steam PC launch, so huge numbers on PC for Spider-Man. Number 4, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is just the eternal beast in the US. Multiverses, number 5. This is really nice. Multiverses was number 1 last month, and it's still in your top 5 its second month. That's really, really good. So Multiverses continues to do well for WB Games. Mario Kart 8 coming in at number 6. Minecraft, number 7. Lego Star Wars, number 8. MLB The Show 22 at number 9. Here's what I think is an impressive result. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 comes in at number 10. In its second month, Xenoblade still top 10. Now, that might not sound super impressive compared to some games, but keep in mind 2 things. First of all, Xenoblade has no digital included because Nintendo doesn't share digital data. So if you include digital, more than likely that moves up higher than number 10. And then second of all, not only does it not include digital, this is a JRPG, and JRPGs are typically extraordinarily front-loaded. They're literally just about the most front-loaded genre there is, especially in the West. You see these games regularly drop 70, 80+% in their second months. This is not uncommon at all. So to see Xenoblade still in your top 10, and that's without digital factored in, good result for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Number 11, Digimon Survive, also another surprisingly good result there. I'm happy to see this one. Horizon Forbidden West, number 12. We've had a lot of discussions about Horizon. Keep in mind, in NPD, they don't include bundled software in the software charts. So this is actually game sales coming in at number 12. Pretty good to see. I am happy to see that result for Horizon. So pretty nice there. 13, Call of Duty Vanguard. 14, Far Cry 6. 15, Soul Hackers 2. This looks pretty disappointing. However, Soul Hackers 2, I kind of always expected to be pretty niche. So let's see what total global sales eventually look like. But it's not a super strong result, that's for sure. Especially being below games like Digimon Survive in their second month. It's not going to be a high number. 16, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. 17, Gran Turismo 7. 18, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. 19, I tweeted about this. How crazy is this? The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. That's right. This game's still ranking in your top 20, and that came out in 2011. That is crazy. Still in your top 20 for a 2011 game. Skyrim will never die. That and Grand Theft Auto are like the eternal games. And number 20, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Okay, that's your NPD breakdown, guys. Let's get to your comments and questions. Start filling that chat up because I'm going to get to everything I can, but it ain't going to be everything today more than likely. So let's get going. Already a whole bunch of super chats in chat. Thank you so much, guys. It's very kind. All right, Kellegrim kicking us off here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Kellegrim. That is amazingly kind of you. Thank you so much, dude. You do not have to do that at all. Good buddy of mine. You don't gotta drop a 10, man. Sup, Benji? Do you think the recent Cyberpunk anime helped out 2077 in any significant way? Absolutely. Zero question. What game slash franchise would you like to see get an anime? I'd watch a Monster Hunter anime keep being awesome. That's actually a great call out. Monster Hunter feels like one of those things that would be hard to adapt to live action. You know, they tried to make that movie, and that movie just did not work out. I think an anime could work way better. That's actually, Telegram, that's a very good note, honestly. Monster Hunter would translate very, very well. And we know Capcom's willing to make anime series, especially with Netflix. They've had, Castlevania's Konami. They've had Dragon's Dogma on there. So Monster Hunter's a good shout. Dude, honestly, that's a very good one. So Monster Hunter anime would be great. Now, in terms of the effect that Edge Runners had on Cyberpunk 2077, there's no debate. Zero question about it. The way that this game significantly uplifted once that anime came out, you can just draw a complete parallel. And like I said, this is the second time it's happened. This happened exactly with The Witcher 3 and The Witcher Netflix series as well. Here's one thing I do want to note, though. Some people are saying it's only the anime. This, it wouldn't have done nothing without the anime. And they're trying to put all of the blame on the anime and still trying to bring Cyberpunk down. This is not entirely true. Now, is the bump for sure because of Edge Runners leading people into it? Yes. Here's the thing. If the game was bad, or if the game was still in a terrible state, you would not see what we're seeing right now. Every single day this week. Guys, what I'm telling you right now, I watch these charts every day. This is utterly insane. Every day this week, during the weekdays, not a new release game, Monday set a number that was very high for this game. Tuesday was higher than that. Wednesday was higher than that. Thursday was higher than that. Friday was higher than that. I'm not exaggerating. Every single day, the player numbers are going up. That would not happen if it was still in a terrible state and people were buying this game and being like, holy crap, it sucks, and telling everyone, dude, the game's still in a terrible state. You would not see that. You would see it just it'd have a big bump, right? Edge Runners would give it that big bump, and then it would crash back down. The fact it is still growing. I mean, Edge Runners didn't come out yesterday. This anime came out now almost 2 weeks ago. To see it still going up and up and up and up, that tells you that this game has gotten, much, much better than the state that it launched in. And this is really good news for CD Projekt Red, especially as they head into the Phantom Liberty expansion that's going to be launching next year. If that is also quality, right, we need to see. You don't need to give CD Projekt Red the benefit of the doubt after the way Cyberpunk launched, right? That's one thing I talked about online. Some people are getting super angry at me, like, Benji, why are you saying anything good about Cyberpunk? Guys, this launched 2 years ago. I don't need to sit there and still scream about the way this game launched 2 years later. Now, that doesn't mean that you just blindly trust CD Projekt Red again, right? They've paid a huge price, especially with people's perception, and you need to be cautious about Phantom Liberty, right? I'm going to tell you that. Don't just rush in there and assume it's going to be a 10 out of 10 experience. So you should still take in that, let's see what happens sort of thing, but you also don't need to just drag on about it. I mean, 2 years later. So here's the thing. If Phantom Liberty is very good, and we need to see, CD Projekt actually has to deliver on that. If it's super good, this IP has had a crazy turnaround, and they'll be headed in a very good direction for the next game. They've basically heavily hinted that, another Cyberpunk game is coming after Phantom Liberty. It'll be years before that's out, but, after Phantom Liberty, it sounds like they're moving on to the next Cyberpunk game. If they have this big rebound, get the game in a great state, have a huge success with Phantom Liberty, they'll be primed and ready to go for that sequel. So good news for CD Projekt. They're moving in a good way. Hopefully they keep this up. Like I said, don't blindly trust them, but hopefully they keep up what they're doing right now. And good to see. As for the anime question, Monster Hunter would be a great one. I've seen people mention God of War. I think God of War would be super cool. It's obviously going to get a live action adaptation, but that's so over the top and crazy action and stuff. You could make a really cool anime based off of that. That would be dope. And yeah, there's a whole bunch. There's a ton. I'd love to see anime from tons of these. I still haven't watched Edge Runners. I'm going to watch it after I play Cyberpunk, but I'm hearing it's incredible. All right, thanks for that super chat. Benji here with a 5. Benji, how impressive performance of RDNA 3 and RTX cards will pressure Microsoft and Sony to release Pro models? If it happens, when and how much? So I was on the board, Benji, I was very confident that there was going to be mid-gen refreshes for these platforms. I will tell you, there's even been rumblings that that was the plan for a while, right? You never know. I don't claim to be the most ultimate insider. This wasn't me sourcing things. This is just things that I've seen floating around, and some people, have told me, but it wasn't me looking for this stuff. That at one point the plan, some rumblings, is that there might have been mid-gen refreshes. I'll be honest, Benji, I don't know if I see it anymore. The way that this generation has been prolonged, the way it has barely even started, really, there's almost no current gen only games right now. I mean, they're literally, you can count them on like one hand how many current gen only games there are. We've barely even started getting these machines going, let alone inflation and the prices of stuff just continuing to go up. I don't know if they financially can release mid-gen refreshes. I think if they could, they probably both would, but I don't know that you can release a mid-gen console for $500 or $600 in the next 2 or 3 years. Like, if it's going to be more powerful than a PS5 or Series X, Sony just had to raise the price on the PS5, right? They just raised the price on that, let alone coming down in price. I am starting to get very doubtful, Benji, that we get mid-gen refreshes, and I was very, very optimistic about it. But I think the financial situation could completely destroy those plans. We'll have to see. I'm not going to tell you it's a 0% chance, but I literally don't know if it's economically feasible. I don't know if a console can be put on the market in the next 2 or 3 years that's not extremely expensive if it's more powerful. It might happen, but I would say it's no guarantee anymore. Now, in terms of RDNA 3 and RTX, incredibly impressive, but again, like I was just talking about with prices, look at the prices on these things. They're utterly insane. The 3090 or 4090 is, I think, $1,600 in the US, just completely absurd. So, I don't know that's going to put that much pressure on them because I don't know how these cards are going to do. I'm going to be honest with you. They're going to do extremely well out of the gate. There's zero question about it. There's always going to be enough enthusiasts out there to buy a really expensive product early on. But I don't know if a year from now the 40 series is still selling gangbuster units. We'll have to see, maybe, but I don't know about that. We'll have to see. Those prices are absolutely absurd. So we'll have to see, Benji. Frostbite Slash here with a 20. Thank you so much, Frostbite. Always super generous. Thank you so much. Hello, Benji. Hope you're doing well. I'm starting to think we may not even get a PS Showcase this year. I agree. It's looking like it might not happen, which is wild to me. I did not think we would pretty much ever go a year without a PlayStation or Xbox major showcase. September is almost over, and there's been no announcements. I think you're right that the studios may be behind on schedule. That's my theory if it doesn't happen. Like we've talked about this on the chat before. If you don't get any PlayStation Showcase this year, that says to me that some stuff got super delayed internally, right? The only thing that even has a public announcement after God of War is Spider-Man. I'm still going to be optimistic Spider-Man comes out next year. But other than that, they don't got date time frames on anything first party. So, again, I'm going to hope that we get one maybe next month. It would be weird. Sony, I don't believe, has ever done a showcase in October. So that would be very strange. But maybe they could just shift it back a little bit to have some more stuff ready. If you don't get one at all, though, like I said, I think it was last week, that more than likely says to you some stuff got super delayed internally. And it's just not in a state that they can show it. So we'll have to see, Frostbite. I'm hopeful. My fingers are crossed. I want a big, awesome PlayStation Showcase because there's so little on the board. It's funny because the difference between Microsoft and Sony's had a much better year in terms of like their first-party output. But it's kind of a flip in that Xbox has had a very poor year for first-party releases, but they have a ton of stuff announced coming up, right? So you at least know, even though some of these games are probably super far away, like Avowed's coming, and Fable's coming, and Starfield's coming, and Redfall's coming, and Forza's coming, and The Outer Worlds 2 is coming, and Hellblade 2 is coming. There's just so many games are coming. It's like the coin flip. Sony released some really good stuff this year. They had Gran Turismo, they had Horizon, they're going to have God of War, but they have almost nothing announced coming up. The only game that's actually fully unveiled that's, from their first party studios, they have some games they're publishing now like Rise of Ronin, but that's from a studio that we know The only one that's officially announced, unless I'm forgetting something, is Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. That's it. The Insomniac games. We know that there's a Last of Us thing coming. They've showed concept art, but they haven't even officially announced that game. All they did was show concept art. We still don't actually really know what it is other than some sort of multiplayer. So, yeah, I hope we get a showcase soon. Sony has very little on the board, but hopefully we do soon, because it is pretty wild. Matt Duffy with a 2 super chat. Matt always bringing the hype and the positive vibes. Benji wishing you and your family a lovely fall. Well, Matt Duffy, thank you for the kind super chat. Your kind words as always. I hope you have an amazing fall, Matt Duffy. I am feeling so much more healthy and better than I did, the last 2 months. Really, I had that crazy bout of long COVID. That's really wrapped up. It's I would say I'm like 95% better. I'm to the point that I'm back to lifting again. So good sign. Think things are headed in a positive direction for fall. And Matt Duffy, I'm wishing you and anyone near you, all your loved ones, you all have an amazing fall too, Matt. You're awesome. Wow, more super chats. You guys are raining the super chats in today. Thank you. That's very, very kind. You guys do not need to do that, and I really, really, really appreciate it. I tell you guys all the time, your guys' super chats go towards my video game fund. So with all of the games coming up this fall, you guys are doing me a huge favor. I don't spend your guys' super chats on fast food and go out and, eat Taco Bell off of it. So you're not blowing your money on something like that by supporting me. I'm a retail worker, so I don't have a ton of money to buy games. So this stuff really helps me get games to cover on my Twitter and all of that sort of stuff. So thank you guys so much. These sorts of things are going to help me out with that stacked fourth quarter that's coming up, because there's actually a lot of games coming. Frostbite Slash with another super chat. It's very kind. It's your second one. What's your thoughts on the Sony versus Microsoft snipes? Yeah, I knew we would get here. That's why it was in my thumbnail, because we haven't seen something like this in a while. It's been a while. I don't disagree with the acquisition, but I think Nadella's comments about PS acquisitions are not comparable. Frostbite, we're on the same page. So let's talk about it. So for anyone that missed it, as we all know, Jim Ryan had some very spicy comments before, where he was, talking about how, Call of Duty, might go exclusive to Xbox. He was talking about how, none of their studios can compete with Call of Duty, which was received very weird. And I get that. It does feel weird to talk about your own studios in that way. To be like, oh, we can't make anything to compete with Call of Duty. It's possible. It's very hard, but we've seen Fortnite do it. We've seen Apex Legends compete with Call of Duty. We've seen Destiny even compete with Call of Duty. Destiny still does huge numbers. It had over 100,000 concurrent players on Steam alone yesterday. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that Destiny's bigger than Call of Duty or Apex Legends is bigger than Call of Duty, but competitive? Yeah, sure. These games are doing very well on the market alongside Call of Duty. So the idea that a studio can't make a game to compete with Call of Duty is silly, because we've seen evidence that you can. It is hard though, right? You could say it's very difficult to have a game that size, but it's not impossible to still have a huge shooter, come out. We've seen other shooters come out and compete with it. So there was that comment that was super weird. And then there was, Jim Ryan then directly amping things up with saying how bringing stuff public and saying, well, Phil shouldn't have brought it public, so now I gotta comment back. And then now you're seeing Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, even get involved. Now what Satya said, he was being interviewed by Bloomberg, and he was basically saying that he's very confident this is going to go through. In fact, he said very, very confident. So they're feeling pretty good about it. He was smiling the whole time. I'm not surprised by this. You're still seeing people push back and think it won't go through. I still think this thing's going to go through. It's very difficult to make an argument that this completely destroys competition in the industry. It's a hard thing to say, considering how many other big games there still are out there. And I'm going to be real with y'all. I had a private conversation about this with someone. I'm not so sure that Call of Duty is still going to be as relevant in 10 years as it is now. I don't see many Gen Z people talking about Call of Duty. Now, I know people have been talking about the end of Call of Duty forever, right? And I'm not here to tell you that Call of Duty is about to end by any means. 10 years from now, I still think Call of Duty is a big brand. But anytime I see Gen Z, they're talking about Fortnite. They don't ever talk about playing Call of Duty that I see. Like, none of it. It's all millennials. And they're going to keep getting older and older. From what I can see, it doesn't appear to me that Call of Duty's done a great job of bringing in the younger generation. Seems like stuff like Fortnite's doing that. So I'm very curious as the age of players on Call of Duty continue to potentially increase as they get older and older. Is Call of Duty still going to be as relevant as it has been? I don't know. It could be, guys. I'm not telling you it's not. I'm just saying this is a thing that I wonder. Because I think they got to really do some things to bring in, obviously you don't want like a 5-year-old playing Call of Duty, right? It's always going to appeal to a bit of an older age group considering it's not, colorful and stuff like Fortnite is. But the advantage for Fortnite, by being so colorful and stuff, is they're getting those people in the door when they are young so they keep playing once they're teenagers and adults. Call of Duty has a bit more of a bar in that it's, a hardcore military, some semi-realistic game that's going to turn off parents from letting their kids play it. I don't know. We'll have to see. Are they going to be able to get those kids that were, 10 playing Fortnite and now they're 18? Are they going to be able to get them off Fortnite and on to Call of Duty? We'll have to see. So there's all of that. And then Nadella says that he's sitting there and he's talking and he says, Sony has made 3 acquisitions just, in this same time frame. So if you want competition, then let's have competition. He's basically saying, because Sony's trying to make the argument it's not, you guys aren't being competitive. He's saying, you guys are buying stuff, so we should be able to buy stuff so we can be competitive. Here's the thing. Like I said, do I think that the acquisition should be able to go through? Yes, I do think it should be able to go through. I find it very, very difficult to try and say that this completely just becomes a non-competitive market just because Activision Blizzard. Because like I said, there's some other companies that actually feel more optimistic about their future than them. On the other hand, Satya is definitely making a comparison that is non-comparable, and he knows it, but Satya is a brilliant businessman. That's why Satya has been able to get to the position he is. That's why he is one of the best CEOs in the entire world. Pretty much anyone will tell you that. It don't matter if you like Microsoft or dislike Microsoft. Satya is an utterly brilliant CEO, a brilliant manager of companies, and you don't get to that kind of position and not be brilliantly smart. So what Satya's doing here is he's making the comparison. You bought 3, we're just trying to buy 1. They are orders of magnitude in difference, right? The most expensive purchase that Sony made was Bungie. That was what, if I remember right, $3 billion. Here we're talking about $70 billion. They're very, very different things, right? And they're not independent, like individual developers. It's an entire publisher. However, again, Satya's just putting the messaging out there. He's on a big platform like Bloomberg. He's talking to the people out there, trying to get their message out there. And it's very smart. If I was Satya, I'd do the same thing. People always are like criticizing these business people for the things that they're saying and doing. Guys, they're doing them for a reason. And so Frostbite, I agree with you. I think his comparison isn't a fair comparison, right? Comparing Activision Blizzard to a couple independently owned studios, not the same thing at all. However, it is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant that he's doing it, and that's why he's doing it. So, yeah, we'll have to see. It's spicy. As to the spice part, the snipes, we have not seen this in quite some time. If you remember, things got pretty spicy during the 360 and PS3 generation. You had comments like Aaron Greenberg whenever Halo 3 launched, and I love Aaron. Listen, I know Aaron gets a bit of a bad rap with people because of stuff like this, but he's actually a very nice guy. He is one of the nicest of all the people at these companies. But, he had his infamous comment about when Halo 3 launched, saying how it outsold combined, multiple PlayStation first-party games combined. Then you had during the PS4 generation, Sony going hard on Microsoft with the whole "this is how you share games" thing and stuff. But it really calmed down in the back half of last generation. You didn't see much drama at all, right? It was pretty much all kumbaya. It was Phil Spencer trying to get along with everyone, which is great. I love that sort of thing. I'm glad that, I want to see more unity in the space. But you had, Phil was saying a lot of nice things. You had Sony, really backing off of some of the stuff that they were doing early in the generations towards Xbox. Nintendo's just kind of always on the side doing their own thing. But it's back. Activision Blizzard has brought back the drama. So it's at least entertaining to watch. All right, Split End 89 with a 2 super chat. Dude, thank you so much, Split End 89. Great mod, great friend, such a good person. Check out Split End's work on Twitter and also on Gaming Trend. Split End is such a good dude. Gotten to try the Modern Warfare 2 beta yet? Thoughts if so? I have, and I will tell you what, it's very clear to me that I am not the hardcore Call of Duty community because I'm having a lot of fun with it. However, if you read the Call of Duty community online, they like despise this game. Like, it's crazy. Anything that I'm seeing from like Charlie Intel or, you know, Tom, oh my goodness, my brain's not working. Tom Hemsworth or, I'm probably saying that wrong. I forgot. And a lot of the like Call of Duty community, they like despise it. They're like just saying how it's utter trash. Keep in mind, I completely skipped Call of Duty Vanguard, didn't play it at all. I'm one of those people that liked Modern Warfare 2019. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think it's actually really fun. I'm excited to buy it. However, the Call of Duty community seems to utterly hate the game. So I'm going to be very curious to see how it does. I mean, you guys have got this game for 2 years now. Like the hardcore Call of Duty community, that's it. They ain't getting another Call of Duty next year. So you're going to have to kind of adapt to it. I know it plays a little different, people are saying. I'm having a ton of fun. I can definitely see why, if you like the run and gun Call of Duty style, why you would not like this game, because you get punished for that. You know, like, you do got to play way more tactical. You know, it feels to me closer to something like Rainbow Six Siege. You know, it's not like exactly like Rainbow Six Siege is even more punishing than this, right? Like Rainbow, you got to play like crazy tactical on that. This isn't that level. There's still a little bit more run and gun, but not to me a lot. Like, it's really, you know, fight your corners, slow movement, you know, make sure you're all clear, that sort of thing, which I enjoy that sort of gameplay. But yeah, a lot of the Call of Duty community hates it. Forzathon is back. Great to see you. Forzathon is back with a super chat. Benji, hi, what's up? Be sure not to miss Beacon Pines on Xbox Game Pass. I know you like branching narrative-focused games, and this is unique and extremely well told. Well, thank you for the heads up, Forzathon. Saw that on the coming soon list. I'm going to try to get to it. Dude, there's so much hitting Game Pass right now I'm interested in. It's crazy. You know, I thought Game Pass, I'll be honest, I don't think it's had the best year this year compared to some. You know, there's been some good months, but there's also been some just kind of okay months. It has really ramped up in September and October. Like, holy cow. So much is dropping in those 2 months that I'm interested in so many different genres and stuff. So I'm going to try to get to Beacon Pines Forzathon. I'm sure I will eventually, but we'll see. But thanks for the heads up. I do love those kind of games. So I'm very interested in it for sure. Ramses Cabrera here with the super chat. My goodness, the super chats are just crazy today. Hi, Benji. Predictions on Bayonetta 3 performance. I think this will probably be the best-selling Bayonetta game. I see way more hype for it than I have Bayonetta traditionally. However, what I will say, people need to be careful not to expect too much. Bayonetta has always been very niche. Like, even for, like, a character action game, right? It's never even been at the level of, like, what we've seen on, like, you know, the more recent Devil May Cry, like Devil May Cry 5, right? Don't expect Devil May Cry 5 sales. If it happens, amazing, right? We should all celebrate and be super pumped. But don't go in expecting that kind of thing. I do think that this will probably be the best-selling Bayonetta title. A lot of people are very excited for it. Just be not too crazy, right? Sometimes people go in with ridiculous expectations, and then if it sells like 1 million copies, they're like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. I don't think Nintendo was expecting a ton out of this, right? It's one of those things that, to me, if it hits 1 million, great, right? Great. If it sells 1 million copies, great. Obviously, more than that, even better. But, like, I'm not expecting this to sell 3 million copies. That would be incredible for this game. I'm not expecting something like that. But we'll have to see, because I don't think Bayonetta 2 ever hit near that. Do we have a final Bayonetta 2 number? I don't think it's very high, dude. I don't think it's very high. I'm seeing 750,000. No, it has sold over 1 million. Yep, as of August. At least that's what I'm seeing. This could be wrong, but I'm seeing it on Reddit. That it sold 1 million? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it did. 1 million. 1.04. Like I said, if this hits 1 million, great. You know what I mean? Don't go into this expecting like 3 million sales. If it hits 1 million, it's already almost the best-selling Bayonetta game ever, right? It's just got to sell barely over 1 million. Like, if it hits 1,100,000, it's the best-selling Bayonetta game ever. So, because I don't know. Where did the original Bayonetta hit? Because that was multi-platform. That was multi-platform. Did that hit 1 mil? I think it did. Yes, it did. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I don't know the exact number, but it was over 1 million for that too. So they're both right over 1 million. I don't think Bayonetta 1 hit 2 million, even being multi-platform. So just going expecting hopefully 1 million. Anything more than that, great. All right. I think I think Super Chats might be cleared. No, there's still a few more. There's still a few more. Holy cow, guys. You're nuts. In a good way. Really, really, really appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Timmer here with a 20. Holy cow, Timmer. That's very generous. Thank you so much. Hi, Benji. Who do you think is the most return on interest publisher in the industry? Based on my research, it's either THQ before going defunct/Udraw or Bethesda. Both have carefully managed their budgets, but I'm curious what you think. Ooh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Are we going to include platform holders, or are we going only third-party publishers? Because if we're going to go platform holders and we're just talking about their games they make, right? If we're not going to talk about like the online, because like as we know, PSN generates ridiculous cash for PlayStation. If we're going to talk just strictly the games you launch and how much those games, just the first-party games are making coming back, I'd actually say probably Nintendo. I mean, good God, how much freaking money did just Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bring in? That game alone. Not to mention Animal Crossing and Zelda and Smash. I mean, these games have to be absurdly profitable. Absurdly profitable. Again, this is just if we're only talking about game sales, right? Like how much your game's selling. EA honestly has to be way up there. I know it sounds weird, but EA is going to be making tons of money off of FIFA. Tons of money off of FIFA. They have also had some huge hit and misses, though, like Battlefield. So I don't know that even though they're making tons of money and tons of profit, they're also probably losing lots of money on some of these games, like Battlefield, for example. I really doubt that game is like super profitable long term, especially. Maybe at launch they sold enough volume to cover development, but I don't know if like long term it's still making money. So that's going to be more volatile. Activision's got to be up there just because of Call of Duty, though they're taking huge hits there. Bethesda's got to be up there. You're right that they have to be up there. I mean, how much freaking profit did Skyrim generate? Has to be ridiculous. How much profit did Fallout 4 generate? Has to be ridiculous. I've had some misses, though, like 76, though that has recovered long term. One of the shocking things to me about the new Steam charts is Elder Scrolls Online. 400 consecutive weeks in the top 100. Had no idea. I knew this game had been a long-term success, right? They've openly said that. Bethesda said, hey, it had a rough launch, but this game's like been very successful for us long-term. Once I saw that, it made a lot of sense why you always see Elder Scrolls Online in every presentation now. Like 400 consecutive weeks in the top 100 on Steam. Guys, I looked. There's only 3 games that have had a longer streak. The only games that are longer than that, Grand Theft Auto 5 has 1 extra week. That was 401. Warframe, which is super impressive for Warframe, by the way, and Counter-Strike Go. That's it. The 4th longest streak on Steam for top 100 in revenue is Elder Scrolls Online. Crazy. Who would have thought that? So that must be bringing in a lot of money. Like long term, I don't know about every week, but if you just add it all up, it has to be a ton of money. So, yeah, those are all ones that stick out to me. Nintendo for sure. I would say EA for sure. Even with some misses, I would say Bethesda for sure. They must be very profitable. I know they have some games that probably didn't have a ton of profit. Wolfenstein 2, I doubt it did. Some of their games, even if they weren't super profitable, definitely broke even. But yeah, Bethesda is probably pretty high up there. Because like you said, they also keep their budget in check. They don't have crazy budgets. That's how some games have been able to break even with low volume sales. RRD with the 2 super chats that says that Satya quote was legendary. I honestly did not mind it, especially the way he said it. If you guys have not watched the video, Satya is literally smile laughing while he says it, which added the spice. If he was just like, very, super businessman, stoic face, and he's just like, let us have some competition, we'd like to buy this. That's the way he says it. He's like laughing basically while he says it. It was pretty legendary in a clapback sense. Again, we discussed it's not 100% fair comparison, but if we're just talking clapbacks, it was a pretty good one. It was a pretty good clapback. Timmer with the 2 super chat. Thank you. That's your second one. Mario movie expectations. Never saw the 1993 one. I would say pretty big if it's good. I mean, we've seen some video game stuff start to do really well lately. Uncharted did. I mean, Uncharted, which was mixed received, did over 400 million at the box office. Sonic did over 400 million. I don't know. Like, some people are going to probably go crazy and just instantly assume this does $1 billion because some people get a little crazy with movie predictions. I don't think anything like that. If it's really good, I could see this doing over 500 million. And that's, it's a bigger brand than Sonic and it's a bigger brand than Uncharted. Both those did over 400. Even higher would be great. I mean, if this hits like 600, 700, 800 million, that's crazy good result. Obviously, they would love this to do something like Minions numbers, which does almost $1 billion. I know the Mario brand is way, way bigger than Sonic and Uncharted. But A, we don't have any idea what the quality on this thing's going to be like. And then B, there hasn't been a recent Mario movie to build off of, like whereas Sonic did, right? People saw the first Sonic and really liked that movie, and that's what helped the sequel to get to 400 million. So I would say the floor for this, if it's an even decent movie, not even great, if it's decent, should be 500. I think just the brand's big enough it can get there. I would say below 500 is pretty bad, to be honest, for something like Mario and it's animated. But we'll see. Movies are weird. Movies are harder, honestly, than games to judge their final box office runs because they're ultra volatile. Ultra volatile. Games, I'll be honest, I think they're easier to predict than box office is. So what, especially long-term box office. Your opening weekend is a little bit easier, but long-term box office has so many freaking factors to it that it's pretty hard. But I would say I think it'll do at least 500. If it's under 500, I think that's a disappointment. I don't know that you'll see another Mario movie if it's under 500. Because even Detective Pikachu, you never got a second Pokemon movie, and that was over 4, I believe. And they never followed, any sort of Pokemon movie up. It's not just, there wasn't another Detective Pikachu movie. There was never another live-action Pokemon movie after that. And trust me, if they thought it was a ginormous success, they would have had some sort of follow-up. It might not have been, like I said, could have been something completely different. But yeah, that made 433, and you've never seen another live-action Pokemon. So it needs to be at least 500. If it's under 500, that's going to be seen as a disappointment. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Holy cow, so many super chats. Phil Spencer is a nice guy. He can be. Satya Nadella is not so nice. You do not run $1 trillion company being a nice guy. So first of all, is Phil Spencer nice? Yes, very nice. He commented on one of my tweets recently, which was fun. It was fun getting Phil in the comments. Phil's a great guy. Now, is Satya not so nice? I would say Satya is definitely more hard-nosed on business, yes. Don't get it twisted. Phil is very, very nice, but I'm sure at times he can put his foot down. You have to run a company. And he runs a giant multi-billion-dollar division within Microsoft. So I am sure, despite Phil being a very nice guy, I am sure there are times he puts his foot down and he's pretty stern. I would say Highlander from the outside looking in, it does seem that Satya is probably even more so than Phil. And like you said, to run a $1 trillion company, you can't be always nice, right? Sometimes you're having tough negotiations and you got to be pretty firm. So I would agree that between the two, Satya is probably a little more aggressive. I don't know him. I've never had any interaction with Satya at all. I listen to the guy all the time on what he's saying, but I don't know him at all. So, but it does seem like he's probably a little bit more stern than Phil. Yeah, I would agree with that. Holy cow, guys. It's going to be tough to get to free questions today because the super chats are crazy. I apologize to the free question people. We'll see. I'm hopefully going to be able to get some, but the super chats are popping. Timmer72299 with a 2 super chat. Doom 2 budget was only $550. That's crazy. Doom was $500,000. LOL. Can you imagine making a game for that nowadays? $500,000. Guys, indie games often cost that or more. Even tiny indie games, with just a handful of people, you still got to pay people usually for years. So even if you're like an indie team of 8, 9 people, still got to pay them. Unless it's like your very first game. Sometimes people sacrifice and they don't get paid when they're making their first game. But if it's even like your second game, you're still paying someone. If you're paying, like I said, 8, 9 devs for 3 years, starts to go up. So crazy. 500, obviously, 500,000 back then to 500,000 now would be, much more money because of inflation. But even still, any game with any sort of decent budget is going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars. Video games are very expensive to make. So that is hilarious, Timmer, and thank you for the numbers because that is hilarious thinking about that now. I mean, guys, what do you think Grand Theft Auto 6's budget is? Hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions. Especially once you factor in marketing. Woo! That GTA 6 budget is going to be nuts. Ramsey's Cabrera here with a 2 super chat. Do you think Marvel games will integrate into MCU? I do not. In fact, most of these Marvel games are not even connected. They've even said like that the new Iron Man game's in its own universe. The Captain America and Black Panther game, they said it's in its own universe. I think the only games that will, first of all, I don't think any of them will connect to the MCU, or at least it doesn't seem like it now. Maybe you could see like a one-off where they get like one of the actors to actually come on, voice the character, use their likeness. I would say it's potentially possible you see like a one-off sort of situation happen just for them to like test to see if that would like boost the game sales, to see, hey, if we integrate it with the MCU, does that make it even stronger? Maybe, but I would say not super likely. I would say the closest thing you'll get is I'm wondering if Insomniac's games are going to connect. I wonder if their Wolverine game and their Spider-Man game can take place in the same universe. Because if so, that could be very cool for Insomniac long run as they mess with more Marvel characters. If they could integrate that to where they are the same universe, and you just have like an Insomniac Marvel universe, like their own insular one. Obviously, they're not going to get every Marvel character. They're going to be, just doing Spider-Man and then now Wolverine. Maybe they get to full-on X-Men at some point. That would be very, very, very cool because you could do some very fun crossover stuff within their own games for that. But I would say that's the closest. The closest I think you'll get to some sort of connected game stuff would be maybe Insomniac. Maybe. Highlander with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. It's your second one. That is super generous. Holy cow. Michael Pachter thinks Microsoft will push the FTC, CMA, and other government agencies to either go to court to block the deal or let the deal happen around January 15th. Yeah, if anyone tries to block Microsoft on this, they will go to court for them, in my opinion. There's been some people that have said, like, maybe they won't, like, maybe they'll just let this slide. I think Microsoft's too invested in this deal to let it slide. I think if something were to happen, they would take this to higher court. They would battle it out. I think they would win in court, by the way. So if one of the, I think that's why this is eventually going to go through. I think some of these agencies maybe internally don't necessarily want to approve it, but I think some of them know they probably can't beat Microsoft in court on this. I really don't think they can. It's so hard to make an argument that this destroys competition. Now, you can make the argument this makes Microsoft a way more powerful player in gaming. There's no doubt about that. But non-competitive, ooh, that's hard to make. The only thing I think that might end up happening in this in the long run is that maybe they have to make concessions documented that Call of Duty has to permanently be a multi-platform title. That's it. I don't think you'll see any other concessions on this. I don't think you'll see them be like, you have to sell certain IP or you have to do this or that. The only thing I could see becoming a legal binding thing is them saying you can still put Call of Duty on Game Pass, but you cannot make Call of Duty an exclusive. Maybe something like that. Otherwise, Microsoft will take them to court, in my opinion. If someone tries to block it. I really think so. I think the FTC is definitely going to pass this. If you notice, you're not really hearing any rumblings from FTC lately. Most of their problems are coming from Europe. Europe and the UK. That's where this deal started slowing down. If you remember, FTC started gaining a lot of momentum in the US. You know, they got the biggest what's the word I'm looking for? Biggest union for this sort of thing on their side, saying, let's do it. You really started hearing FTC not really start making any more comments negatively about this deal publicly or anything like that. I think FTC is almost good to go. It's really Europe and UK. That seems to be where the problems are happening. And again, it's not problems in that it's blocked. It's just they're facing some stiff pushback there. My guess is steeper than they expected. They expected a lot of, hardness, but I think that Europe might have caught them slightly off guard. I think Europe might be a little tougher than they thought. Benji with a 5. Benji, how big can Tears of the Kingdom be? Will this sell 10 million copies day one? Ooh, 20 million year one and 30 million lifetime. I'm not even certain it outsells Breath of the Wild lifetime. It's got to be a really good game. So we'll see about lifetime sales. It might, but I'm not going to 100% say this even outsells Breath of the Wild long term. Like I said, it very, very well might. I don't put it as like an unlikely scenario. For me, it's a 50-50. We won't know if it's going to outsell Breath of the Wild lifetime unless it's like once we see the quality. If this is a 90-plus Metacritic game, probably is going to outsell Breath of the Wild. But if for some crazy reason this takes a big quality hit, and I'm doubtful that could happen, but if it were to happen, I don't know that it would outsell Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is the best-selling Zelda game of all time. So, like I said, right now, very, 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 very well could outsell Breath of the Wild lifetime. But I need to see that quality before I'm all in on like a 30 million lifetime prediction. Now, will it launch bigger than Breath of the Wild? Way bigger. 10 million copies day one shipped. Here's what I'll say. The US is going to be utterly ginormous for Breath of the Wild. Biggest market. Tears of the Kingdom's biggest market will be the US for launch. Japan will still be huge. Europe will still be huge. 10 million copies shipped day one. Yeah, I actually think that could happen. Sounds crazy, but it very well could happen. That really could happen. But I don't know, it is very high. It's very high. But not impossible. We've seen games ship more than 10 million copies on day one. Fallout 4 did. Multi-platform game, but it's not like no game ships over 10 million units day one. There are games that do that. So it could. We'll have to see, Benji. But I would say 10 million copies shipped for launch globally is not impossible because I think that this will be potentially the biggest launch ever in the United States for a Nintendo game. We'll have to see. I'm not going to go all in on that yet, but we'll see. Zelda is huge in the US. Huge. And globally now. Breath of the Wild really helped that in other markets. Highlander, I met Satya Nadella at his son's funeral. Oh, man. My father-in-law is friends with him. Crazy. Crazy. Yeah, I have never met Satya. I haven't actually in person met anyone from Microsoft, though I've talked to a lot of these guys on Twitter, which is cool. All right, I think Super Chats are finally clear. Holy cow. Thank you guys. That was a ton of Super Chats. I still am going for 30 minutes, so I can actually hit some free questions today. I was starting to be like, I don't know if I'm getting your guys free questions. All right. Let's get to the free ones. Holy cow. Thank you for the Super Chats. That was insane. Freebies. Let's go. I'm going to just be hitting things that are on subjects we haven't covered. So I apologize to those of you that had a free question that we already covered. Only going to be hitting stuff we haven't talked about. Exiza. Benji, Cyberpunk 2077 hit 97,000 concurrent players on Steam today. Yep, I noticed that. It will definitely hit 100,000 tomorrow. Yep. By the way, did you know Cyberpunk 2077 won 41 Game of the Years in 2020? The fourth most for every game that year. Yeah, Exiza, a lot of people liked Cyberpunk 2077. The main problem was the game was just like broken, especially on last-gen consoles. If they had canceled last-gen platforms, which I know would have been frustrating to people that were on last-gen, but let's just say they canceled the last-gen versions and instead launched Cyberpunk this year in a much better state, or not even this year, but let's say last year, right? Because this came out in 2020. Let's say it came out December 2021, and the last-gen versions were canceled, so they could spend that year having more resources on fully on, just the current-gen versions. I think we would be in an entirely different scenario with the Cyberpunk brand. They really screwed up, going last gen. They should have just not done it. I get it that it would have been tough early on to only be on current gen, but those last gen versions were just so utterly broken, they should have never came out. So they should have canceled that, delayed it a year. I know that sounds brutal, and it would have hurt their stock price, but guess what? They took a bigger stock hit by launching it early. I mean, their stock completely collapsed after that. So they took an even bigger hit than they would have. Yes, they would have taken a hit delaying it. It wouldn't have been as bad, I think, as it was. And they would have had a lot more momentum still for the brand. Instead, they're recovering. So, because a lot of people liked the game itself. The main issues were all the bugs and performance and all of that stuff. Michael Yu, for the new Steam charts, do you know if there are errors? If you look at the top 100 sellers, both Hades and Halo Master Chief Collection show they've been in the top 100 for 1 week, which is wrong. Michael Yu, no, it does not have errors. So the way that it works is that if you leave the top 100 for even 1 week, that you get reset to 0. So you know how we talked about Elder Scrolls Online is on a 400-week stretch. If next week Elder Scrolls Online becomes the 101 bestseller, it will go back to 0. It's consecutive weeks, and then they reset the weeks once you leave the top 100. So maybe, Michael, Halo Master Chief Collection is in the top 100, for the dailies last week, but it wasn't for the week, at least that I've seen. So I will have to look. There could potentially be a few errors. This just came out, but I don't believe that it lists. Let me see something. I can give you that definitive answer right now. I can give you that definitive answer right now. 1 sec. Okay, let's see. Global. Let's see. Because if so, then yes, there could be a few bugs as they work this out. Nope. Yeah, it was not last week. Halo Master Chief Collection was not in the top 100 selling games last week. So that's why it's back to 1. It's not your total cumulative. So that number doesn't mean that Elder Scrolls Online has in total had 400 weeks as the top 100. It means that it's been 400 in a row, which makes it crazy. That's why I tweeted about it, because I was like, what the F? Who knew that Elder Scrolls Online had 400 consecutive weeks in the top 100? No one would have thought that. Until that was made public, I don't think anyone would have predicted that. I just looked at last week's weekly top 100 because you can look at last week's. Halo Master Chief Collection's not there. That's why it now says 1, because this is the first of its new run. Like I said, if Elder Scrolls leaves next week, that 400 number is going to become 0. They completely reset once you leave the top 100. So that's why it shows that. Ryan Thompson, what are your thoughts on the Take-Two stock tanking after the Grand Theft Auto 6 leak? Extremely silly and panic-driven. And do you think it will hurt production, not just for Grand Theft Auto 6, but the other Take-Two games in development as well? One thing you learn watching the market a lot is investors are very quick to panic. They're as quick to panic as anything in the entire planet Earth. Nothing panics quicker than investors. Investors are just ready to panic at a moment's notice. The stock should have had a 0% hit. The only way that stock should have taken a hit is if the source code leaked. Now that is a different situation. If the GTA 5 or GTA 6 source code went public, like the full-on source code, they would be utterly screwed, bro. Like screwed. So then I would say that the stock completely collapsing, like just a huge drop, would make perfect sense because they were going to be in a really bad spot. Like, we don't know. The GTA 5 source code, if that leaked out, could potentially take GTA 5 Online off service for a while until they figured out what to do. We would have to see. If people had immediate giant exploits for GTA Online to a massive degree, you probably couldn't keep it even up and running, which would be an utter disaster for their financials. But just the leaked videos, that's crazy. The stock should have had a 0% hit. Shouldn't have even dropped by $1, because who cares? Why does it matter if videos leak out? It's not going to do anything. It sucks for their marketing. It sucks for their marketing, and it sucks for the dev teams. These are the two main issues that everyone's been talking about. The GTA 6 leaks. What do they mean? The only disaster scenario here in terms of like actual business was source code. That was the only potential business disaster. The two things that this utterly sucks for are the developers themselves, because you saw people making crazy comments about how like the visuals look trash and the games look trash. Guys, I have seen a lot of pre-alpha games. I have seen pre-alpha games for games that aren't even out yet, haven't even been shown yet. For a pre-alpha, some of this stuff look pretty freaking good. I mean, some stuff in pre-alpha, and you're seeing tons of devs post now some of their pre-alpha stuff online, and you can see how rough games sometimes look before they get anywhere near their launch state. For it to look how it does in pre-alpha for a project this big, if anything, I think it's reassuring. The feedback to the playable characters has actually been way better. You saw all that drama whenever they very first got reported that there was going to be, one of the main protagonists was going to be, a playable woman. And of course, certain people, I'm not going to go into this, certain people rose a fuss about it. Once it leaked out, like, the characters and people could see the characters, I saw, like, almost none of that. Like, all of a sudden, everyone was, like, pumped about the new characters. They really liked the way the new characters look. So, if anything, I would say that, like, I know this sucks for the dev team because they're having to read all these stupid messages about how the game doesn't look ready and all of this sort of stuff. If anything, to me, it's reassuring that GTA 6 is probably going to be pretty freaking sick if it already looks like this. The other thing it super sucks for is marketing. They wanted to be able to be controlling of teasing things, of being like, teasing up the buildup of what the new characters are, teasing some stuff about the maps, like all of that stuff. A lot of it has already come out now. So you got to completely shift your marketing plans. And I saw some people be like, how can this affect marketing? They haven't even released a trailer yet. Guys, a marketing cycle on a game like this, it's planned years in advance. There are already discussions right now within Rockstar about how they're going to unveil this. What are we going to show early on? What are we waiting to keep to ourselves? What do we show 3 months before launch? What do we show 6 months before launch? Dude, a marketing of a AAA game doesn't happen a week before you drop a trailer. It's not just like, oh, I guess we need a trailer next week. Let's, real quick cut a trailer. Guys, they do this for years to build up to something like this. So marketing took a big blow. That's going to suck. They're going to have to rethink some things and probably re-strategize on some stuff. And the dev team. Those are the two that got really, really hurt. But the stock price drop, Makes zero sense to me unless source code leaks. Joseki. Hello, Benji. What is up? What is up, Joseki? Great to see you. I hope you're doing great. A bit of a long question this time. Atlas confirmed they will not announce any new game at the concert next month. This is a surprise, especially because this comes after a 25th anniversary Persona celebration that only brought forward 3 ports. This year, Atlas also had SH2, which is Soul Hackers. Soul Hackers 2 underperformed expectations. And Project Reef Fantasy 2 was announced 6 years ago, and we know nothing about it. With Persona 6 seemingly still far away and Persona 5 having released in 2016, I think Atlas was caught unprepared for development on modern platforms. The gap between Persona 5 and Persona 6 is probably going to be close to 10 years. Shin Megami Tensei 5 was in development for 6 years and it needed to include developers from the 3DS games. So yes, a whole bunch of stuff about, be able to make hits like other HD games. I feel like something needs to change. Do you agree? Yes. Atlas is way too slow on getting games out. Way too slow. What I will say, a surprising amount of interest in Persona 5 Royal on the new platforms. I'm very surprised by that. I thought that this would do decent on Xbox, specifically because Game Pass, because people have been asking about it for so long. But I'm seeing a lot of people saying they're buying the PS5 version as well. Switch version's not a surprise to me. It's going to do well. The real surprise to me is a lot of people are implying, I'm seeing online, that a ton of people are still going to buy the PS5 port. So that could help them if like the Persona 5 Royal port does really well on Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox. It just gives them some life and some money while they wait for Persona 6. My theory on Persona 6 is that I think they're going to announce it next year and launch in 2024. That's what I think. I think it's going to get a 2023 reveal and then come out in 2024. But there is no doubt Atlas takes way too long to release Persona games, especially now it's become a hit franchise. They should be having a new Persona game every 5 years. Just being real with you. There should be a new Persona mainline game every 5 years. When did Persona 5 release now? It was a long time ago, bro. Dude, it came out in 2016. So if my prediction is right, that Persona 6 is 2024, you're talking, 8 years between them? That's way too long. That's way too long. 8 years between games ain't cutting it. It's just not, dude. I know it's super tough, and this sounds super annoying if you're a developer and you're watching me say this. I know, guys, I know. If you're a developer and you're watching this, you're like, Benji, making AAA games is hard. I totally know. But what I'm saying, 8 years is too long. It's just too long for business. It's just too long. Should be getting a new Persona game every 5 years. They got to figure out a way to do that. Does that mean you reduce scope? Because here's the thing. Getting a new game out every 5 years in a flagship franchise is not impossible. It's all about how are you going to scope the game. And again, it's hard, guys. I'm not preaching at you in terms of like, I'm a developer and I know everything. That's literally not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it can be done. We have seen developers do it, even with juggernaut-sized games. It's all about how are you going to scope this game? What's the budget on this game? How many people do you actually have working on this game? 8 years between entries is too long. It's too long. You can't be doing that. 5 years should be their goal. That's still a long development cycle, by the way. 5 years is still a long time. But at least it'd be an improvement for Atlas. So with Persona, I know they do some other stuff too, but I'm saying Persona is their big franchise now. Persona, 5 years between numbered entries should be what they're shooting for. So they do got to change something. I don't know if they got to reduce scope. I don't know if they need to really staff up the development size of these teams now that it's become a huge hit. Like Persona 5 took this franchise to another level, so maybe you invest more and get more people on these games. Maybe you do some different engines. I don't know. But I assure you that Atlas management and Sega are also looking at an 8-year gap and being like, we need a new Persona quicker than that. So, yes, I agree, Joseki. Some stuff does need to change there. Jim Brown, what are your thoughts on Ninja Theory and other studios using AI for voice acting instead of real actors? Do you think this is bad for the industry? This is going to be a hot button topic for the entire world as we move forward. AI is going to start replacing a ton of jobs. anyone that you talk to in tech all know it. They all know it. Not just voice actors. They're going to start taking regular people's jobs. Like, it's going to become a huge discussion point in the next 10 to 20 years, what we do about AI. Because AI is going to start taking tons of jobs. Tons of them. My personal feeling is that long term, we're going to have to globally have some sort of universal basic income, at least in first world super rich countries. Because I think eventually huge amounts of work will be offloaded to AI. And when I say huge amount, I'm saying maybe 50% of the work we do right now might be done by AI, not in 10 years, but in 100 years. We might lose 50% of the jobs we have right now. 50% could go to AI potentially. Depends on how advanced AI gets, right? It all depends on how advanced and how cheap it gets to get an AI in there. So this is a huge question for the entire world. And like I said, I can tell you everyone in tech is thinking this right now too. Everyone's wondering, and in government, what are we going to do about the coming of AI? Because it's coming. It's already happened. There's already all sorts of jobs that are starting to get taken away by this stuff, and it's only going to increase with time. There's billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars being invested into AI all across the world. So do I think it's a good thing for the industry? As of now, I don't love it because voice actors in particular are already underpaid and overworked in a lot of ways. You hear horror stories all the time about how little voice actors get paid for their work. And now are they not only getting paid hardly any money for these jobs, they're also losing them now potentially to AI. So now there's A, you're not getting paid a whole lot. And then B, now you have to compete not just with other actors to land a gig. Now you got to compete with AI. So I don't love this. No, I know in some ways it can make things way easier potentially for developers, but really tough for that community. I would say that Jim Brown, not only is this a big question for gaming, this is going to be a big question for the entire planet over the next 10, 20, 30 years. We're going to have to see. It's going to be very interesting. The world's about to get really weird, guys. It really is. Some technology is starting to come online that is actually crazy. Zinfamous. Hey, Benji, the people need a new 3D Super Mario game. You're right. Haven't had one since Odyssey, which is nuts. When is Nintendo finally going to announce a new one? Also, predictions on a potential Chimaev versus Costa fight in the UFC. So, two things. First of all, I am suspicious that maybe Nintendo's now holding 3D Mario for their next platform, or at least cross-gen, because it has been so long. It's been so long and one's not even announced. I think if you are this late in the cycle, you maybe just hold that. I put it this way, Zinfamous, there's no doubt in my mind there is a 3D Mario game in development. We have no idea how far along it is, but Odyssey was an utterly massive hit. There's no way you don't, have another Mario 3D game coming. My hunch is that since we're so late in the cycle now, because even if you're someone that believes that Switch 2 is 2024, guys, we're almost to 2023. So even if you aren't on the Team 2023 boat, 2024 is still only a year after that. So they might just be so late in the cycle that they're just waiting to show 3D Mario now and saving it for cross-gen. Because no matter what, like I said, I think regardless of when Switch 2 launches, most Nintendo games are going to be cross-gen for a long time, I think. But maybe they just hold that for a launch title, right? A cross-gen launch game. And that's why you haven't seen it potentially. Now, Costa versus Chimaev, I would pick Chimaev in that fight just because he's so ridiculous, but Costa will be the hardest fight he's ever had. Costa's a bit of a head case in the ring, in the octagon. He fights just nutty, right? The dude has no sense of self-preservation. He's just a freaking berserker, which I love. It makes him very exciting to watch, but put it this way, he's going to be stronger than anyone Chimaev's ever fought in the cage. Way stronger. You saw Chimaev. I think Chimaev's amazing, but you saw him really struggle with Gilbert Burns, and part of that was because of the way he chose to fight Gilbert. But, dude, Gilbert is way smaller than Costa. Costa's over 200 pounds, okay? So it'd be his hardest fight, I think. I think he would really... And Costa has good takedown defense, by the way. Very strong and hits like a friggin' truck. If Chimaev took the shots that he was taking from Gilbert Burns and he was hurt by those, if he took that from Costa, he would go to sleep, I think. Like if he was taking the flush punches that Gilbert Burns hit him with from Costa, he's going to sleep. So he'd have to fight a lot smarter whenever he fought him, which I think he would. So I would still pick Chimaev to win just because I think, especially in a 3-round fight, he would be able to get it to the ground enough to win there, but it'd be hard. He's not going to, put it this way, we saw him like completely run through. Oh my goodness, Big Mouth. I forgot his name last time I talked about this too. I don't know why this keeps happening to me with him, but it does. Anyways, you know who I'm talking about. He would not run through Costa the same way. That would be a hard fight. All right, I got 8 minutes, and then I have to go. I think we have Super Chats coming in right at the end. Right at the end. 8 minutes, and I have to leave. Have to. 2 Super Chats coming in late, right at the end. Benji here with a 5. What is going on with Dragon Quest? Dragon Quest 12 a no-show at TGS. Dragon Quest 10 out again in Japan. No West plans. No update on the HD2D title. Weird. Benji, the answer to this is the same thing as the answer to everything right now. Why everything's delayed. The pandemic. I keep telling you guys on here, the pandemic screwed game development. And I know Japan has actually been hit less by this than the West because Japan has not had as intense of work from home conditions as like what's happened in the West. Like a lot of Western studios are still fairly remote. You're starting to see a lot more people come back to the offices, but you're still seeing a lot of people working from home. Japan was hit by this less, but they were still hit by the pandemic. It still had impact, whether that was some people working from home or it's just some people being out, right? If you got COVID and you're sick, you're not showing up to work. And if it's spreading around your offices and you're losing people for weeks at a time, that's going to impact your development cycle. So the answer, I'm sure, is the same thing that's every game in the entire world right now, the pandemic. Pandemic screwed everything for a good couple years. Luckily, it seems like we're coming out of it. You know, it's by no means completely done, but it seems the worst is behind us. But, you know, that set back development on a lot of games by years. Timmer72299 with a 5 super chat. Do you see Valve Private being bought when Gabe is no longer head of Valve, plus Persona series made $220 million, Persona 5 made $80+ million? I've heard rumblings before that Gabe is potentially interested in selling when he leaves Valve. Don't run with that because it's been a while since I've heard that, but it would not be the first time I've heard that. So I would say when Gabe leaves Valve, yes, it might go public. I wouldn't say it's a 100% lock, but I've heard enough rumblings in the past to believe that that's probably a thing. I think that when Gabe leaves Valve, because he has to retire eventually, when he fully is done, exiting the company, everything, I think there's a very good chance Valve is no longer a privately held company, yes. Now, whether that means they just go completely public and investors, or that means they sell to someone, I don't know. My hunch would be that they wouldn't sell to another company. My hunch would be they'd go completely public. That would be my guess. But I don't know that, you know. My hunch would be Valve would just would go public. But we'll have to see. But I think when Gabe leaves, it probably isn't so privately held, yeah. Oh, there was a Monster Hunter anime and I missed it. JCat says there is one. What's up, JCat? Great to see you. I've got 4 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. I know I barely hit free questions today, but that's because the super chats were off the chain. But I have a hard out. Michael Yu says that Ninja Theory elaborated on the tweet. They're using AI for placeholder. In order to help them understand timing placement, but then they use real actors. Well, that's completely fine. All it does is help development. What I don't want to see is AI completely replace actors because, dude, it's already tough being a voice actor. Using it for placeholder, that's perfectly fine. In fact, probably most devs should be doing that for placeholder because that's just whatever. That's just helping your development cycle. Justin Tanhill, thoughts on Sean Layden joining Tencent Games as a strategic advisor? It does seem like a weird choice to me given some of the comments Sean Layden has made in the past. I really like Sean Layden. I respect Sean Layden a bunch. I will say with some of his comments in the past about things like acquisitions and consolidation of the industry, it does feel a bit weird to me because there is no one investing more right now than Tencent. Like up until this Activision Blizzard acquisition, Microsoft wasn't even acquiring stuff in terms of investment levels the way that Tencent was. Tencent is about the most aggressive. So, we'll see. It is interesting. But I really like Sean. I'm not saying this as like shade. Really like Sean Layden. I think he's been great for the industry. It just is a surprise. Tencent is not the company I would have expected him to go, but I'm sure that Tencent's paying him a lot. So it's hard to say no to that. I think for Poor, what do you think on Jason Schreier's words about Crowball? I have no idea how to say his name, by the way, even though I really like him. Crowbill or Crowbile or whatever. I have no idea how to say his name. Just yesterday, I saw those comments, and they were pretty hard. If you're talking about what happened between them a while back, I don't love it. Listen, I respect Jason a lot, so I'm not going to come on here and throw shade at Jason Schreier. I think he is literally the best reporter that the industry has. The other thing I will say about Jason, though, and I'm willing to bet that he would probably say this too, just by judging on some of his actions publicly, he might be a little intense and potentially a little cold sometimes. But not everyone has to be everybody's friend. Some people, that's just different personality types. Did I love what he said about Crowbile? I don't, because I really like him, and I think that he is the good kind of super fan. Like, there's no doubt Crowbile is like a ginormous Xbox fan, right? You just visit his Twitter page, it's very obvious. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the good kind of super fan, where they're just talking about how they love Xbox, positive vibes. If you're any platform, if you're an ultra positive Nintendo fan, ultra positive Sony fan, love that stuff. There ain't nothing wrong with that. It's the toxic stuff I don't like. So I didn't love what Jason said about him, if you're talking about what happened back then. But I don't really need to involve myself between those two. Listen, some people have said some really mean comments about me. It is what it is, right? That's just life. All right, guys, I got to call it there. I'm sorry. I wish I could go longer, but I have a hard out. I have to get ready for work. Thank you so much for an amazing chat. I apologize to all the free questions. The super chats were off the chain today. Subscribe to my channel if you are not already. We do one of these chats every single week. Like the video if you haven't already. It helps the YouTube algorithm. Love you guys. Stay safe. Play some games, and I will see you either on the stream next week or I will see you here on Twitter real soon. Bye, guys. Have an amazing day. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.